Superbugs, zombie genes, and unexpected mutations caused by gene editing technology like CRISPR. These are horrifying mutations that scientists fear are spreading. Superbugs are bacteria that have developed resistance to the antibiotics we rely on to treat infections. This is becoming a bit of a concern because it means that infections which used to be easy to treat with simple antibiotics could become deadly again. And these superbugs can spread quickly, especially in places like hospitals where people are already weakened by other health issues. Bacteria learn to fight off the treatments we use to kill them, so the usual treatments don't work anymore. In some cases, even the strongest antibiotics available have no effect. If things were to continue like this, we might be looking at a world where simple cuts or infections could become life-threatening again, and things that used to be manageable, like pneumonia or urinary tract infections, could be lethal. We've already seen some superbugs in action. The most famous example is probably MRSA, which resists common antibiotics and can cause everything from minor skin infections to more serious ones. There are others out there like C. difficile and multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, and without new antibiotics or treatments, the future could look a lot like it did before antibiotics were discovered. A lot of people could die from infections that we just don't think twice about because they're so easy to treat. Apparently our DNA has a lot of what's called junk, which are stretches of genetic material that don't seem to have any specific purpose. But scientists are starting to worry that some of this so-called junk DNA might suddenly turn on in ways we don't understand. If these dormant genes were to activate, they could cause unexpected mutations in our cells, leading to diseases or even new forms of cancer. The problem is they don't know exactly what these dormant genes do. I don't know though, why be all doom and gloom about it? Maybe these dormant genes are more like the X gene in X-Men, and we'll start having people with laser eyes and the power to control the weather. They should look into that. If these genes were to wake up though, they could potentially start producing harmful proteins or cause other genetic problems that result in serious health issues. Some scientists again think that certain forms of cancer might be linked to junk DNA. Gene editing technology, especially CRISPR, has been a pretty huge leap in science. They can now make some incredibly precise changes to DNA, which opens up all sorts of possibilities, from curing genetic diseases to creating crops that are resistant to pests. But there's a looming threat behind it: the risk of unintended mutations. Even though CRISPR is incredibly accurate, it's not perfect. Sometimes it can cut or alter DNA in unexpected ways, creating problems that no one saw coming. Changes like this could potentially cause new diseases, or make existing ones even worse. One big concern is that these unintended mutations could be passed on to future generations, making the problem even worse. Imagine editing a gene to prevent a disease, but instead you accidentally create a new health issue that's even worse than the one you were trying to avoid in the first place. And of course, forget mistakes even, sometimes people just cause harm intentionally. Another fear is that CRISPR could be used to create bioweapons, and God knows what else. There's definitely a lot of good that can come from gene editing, but still a lot we don't know about what can happen long term. Xenobiology is the study of life that isn't quite like the life we know on Earth. It's about creating new artificial life forms, organisms that don't naturally occur in nature but are designed by humans. So with advances in synthetic biology, scientists have already created bacteria and even yeast that have been altered. As you can probably guess though, the big concern here is that these artificial life forms could mutate in unpredictable ways, creating new diseases or causing harm to the environment. One of the biggest worries is that these new life forms could escape the lab and spread into the wild, where they might compete with or disrupt natural ecosystems. Let's say we had some genetically altered lab bacteria that could eat plastic, but instead of stopping once it's eaten enough, it just mutates to start breaking down other materials that are essential to life. Or imagine we had a synthetic organism that can survive in extreme environments like the deep ocean and suddenly becomes a global threat. There's a very real potential for unpredictable consequences, and as we get better at creating life in a lab, the risks of these organisms mutating into Frankenstein-like creations also becomes more of a possibility.